The instant feedback is going crazy. I want to ask this one, Jim in Texas. How do I love my wife. I want to help her. How do I explain to her that me sitting on the couch is not against her?
You know, I just have so much compassion for that. I've been married now 23 years, and the first 2 years of my marriage, I went through the same thing until I started teaching seminars on this subject, and I had my wife come to those seminars, and she saw so many other men raise their hands when I said, now, how many men, the first thing you think about when you get home, you want to just sit on that couch. Now, that she saw it, and she said, okay, maybe there's some truth to this stuff, and she doesn't have to take it so personally. What's great about this new book is that there's wonderful research in there. It's really done in very simple layman's terms, but the real research is there, which shows that when a man is sitting on a couch looking at the TV set or reading a newspaper article, whatever, football game, his testosterone levels are starting to rebuild. And in a man's body, he has to make 30 times more testosterone than a woman in order to recover from stress. His body loses testosterone under stress. A woman's body doesn't nearly as quickly as a man's. So she gets to see there's a physiological foundation of this. And the irony is once she sees it in black and white, she feels a sense of relief because finally she doesn't take it so personally. Because inside there's a sense inside of her that goes, gee, you know, why doesn't he want to help out? Does he just think I'm a servant around the house? The next obstacle, and I'm sure there's some other people writing about this, men say this to me all the time, which is, John, why is it that my wife, you know, just can't hear me when I say, just tell me what to do, ask for my help, I'll do it. And she says, I shouldn't have to ask.
That's what they're writing this.
Yeah.
How do I explain to my wife I'm not a psychic?
I understand that, and this is the big issue. And when you hear the whole argument, which is what this book is, you get this book as a Valentine's Day present, and you sit there and you read this with her, and she'll love the book because there's all this good stuff that explains women, and it validates women. Women are under so much stress today, and they feel bad about it. They think something's wrong with them, and it explains why they're under so much stress, that they are under stress, and it also explains how men's brains are different, and that if men do routine jobs that aren't emergency jobs, they don't have any energy to do it. And literally, when you ask a man to do something, then it triggers the amygdala in the brain to increase the production of a brain chemical called dopamine that gives him energy to do it. Otherwise, men are rebuilding their energy levels. They need a little bit of an emergency, which means to ask rather than just to expect. And women get over that. I've seen them very quickly. Once they see the whole picture, they let it go, and they start realizing, and this is the key for all the women listening, and that is that women think if he doesn't join in and help or offer his help, then he doesn't love me. Instead, the new equation becomes, if I ask for his help and he responds with a yes, that means he loves me. And so that becomes the new way to interpret a man's behavior. And, of course, every man will go, yeah, I'm willing to help. And, of course, the key is not only just he needs to help, but also that when he does help, that it's going to be recognized and appreciated.
Because it's not a lack of thoughtfulness. It just doesn't occur to you.
Well, if you can even measure a man's brain waves, you can measure the brain frequencies at the end of the day when he comes home. What he does is I had to laugh because my granddaughter just walked by. Okay, what he's literally the prefrontal cortex of his brain, literally the blood flow stops there. And he doesn't think of these things. Whereas for a woman, when she comes home and they're stressed, there's 8 times more blood flow in the brain, making her aware of all these different issues that are going on. I'm sorry, I'm just laughing again. I'm looking at my little 1.5-year-old granddaughter.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. That's one of the greatest joys of my life now, so I'm happy to share that.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. Do you mind if I get to more feedback?
Oh, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Now we're getting from tons from men, tons from women. This is something that I hadn't ever heard before, and I want to ask it. There's somebody talking about relationships. It says besides the natural attraction to each other towards a sexual intimacy and companionship, have we reached to a point with divorce levels in our country that we're realizing that actual relationships themselves are unnatural?
Yeah, well, see, what happens is that's somebody's belief and conclusion that relationships are unnatural, but they're totally natural. This is my experience that they're natural. This is just someone's opinion, and I can see why they would think they're unnatural. And when you look at a lot of books out there, like the woman, I think called a female brain and various other things, and they just look at physiological differences between men and women. What they're often looking at is, for example, the animal kingdom. We have an animal brain in our head. The limbic system's no different from a monkey's. You could put it under a microscope and you can't tell the difference. There's the reptilian brain, which is where our sexual impulses come from. It's no different from a lizard's. I mean, literally, you can put it under. This is all whole evolutionary development of the reptilian brain, the limbic system brain, and then we have something called the prefrontal cortex, which is totally new. And that is the executive center of the brain that overrides everything. And that's what's been developing over the last few thousand years, or even longer, but this prefrontal cortex. And so this is where I'm functioning from, is teaching people how to integrate, and literally you can see this happening in the brain, integrating our limbic system with the reptilian brain to the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And these are new behaviors that I'm discovering that make marriages last. I mean, we're closer than we've ever been. I know what couples go through. I'm married. I got 3 children. I got granddaughter. The whole thing of a life and the stress we go through. And there's an evolutionary change that's massive that's occurring right now in the last 50 years and so much even more in the last 10 years where women are changing roles. Women are becoming like men. You won't see this anywhere in the animal kingdom. It doesn't exist anywhere else, but women are changing roles. And there's a lot of things that are different about humans and animals, but this is one of the big significant changes. It's produced a huge stress on our relationships, and hence we have huge amounts of divorce. However, once we understand how to create a different kind of support in relationships, which is what we've invented over the last 100 years, which is something called romance. We've invented something else called good communication, or at least we're trying to get there. My book teaches people completely revolutionary ideas of doing this, often counterculture, counter-therapy, and so forth, because a lot of those ideas were attempts, but they didn't work. For example, if you go to an indigenous country where they don't have TV, they're still living in the old world where men and women live in separate worlds, you'll see that men have their world, women have their world, and there's sort of a peaceful coexistence. But they don't come together like we do today. They don't have the stress in their relationships that we have today. And, excuse me, I'm just laughing. My daughter's looking at it, my granddaughter. This is a huge stress reducer, by the way, for women today, is having grandchildren. My wife is so much happier now. So if I could come back to my point, in these indigenous cultures, women could care less about communication with men. Why has it become so important today? Because there is a way that men can listen to women when women talk about their problems that will actually dramatically lessen women's stress. And when they dramatically lessen the stress, suddenly women are happier and they're capable of maintaining this balance. Yet it hasn't been codified yet. We haven't had children grow up in families where the parents knew this. My children instinctively know this because they've seen their parents do it. But we're a rare situation. We're sort of the frontiers people, the people that are just exploring lots of these techniques and figuring out how it works. And that's why I've written the book.